good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for signing up and joining our CPD session this afternoon. I know that many of you who are joining us are either aspiring or current middle or senior leaders within our trust, and we're absolutely delighted that you've joined us for a conversation about leadership. And I am thrilled this afternoon to be joined by Phil Denton and Micky Melon, who are going to talk to us around their book, but also around their really invaluable insights into leadership. So I wonder, Phil and Micky, whether you would be happy to introduce yourselves and perhaps just give us a little bit of a summary of your career to date, what it is that you do, and perhaps how you two know each other would be really interesting.
Yeah, you go first, Micky.
I'm Micky Melon and current manager of Tranmere Rovers. Been a manager now for 15 years. Before that, I was a player. Going through my management journey, going through the pro license, A license, B license, and then as I was getting going, discovering that I wanted to go deeper into this leadership role because I was dealing with a group of players and fans and leaders up from me, that kind of people, and wanted to go deeper into it. Met Phil in a gym in Stevenage. Phil was a football fan. He was down to watch Tranmere play. And we just happened to get talking about leadership, realised that we could hit it off. Told him an idea I had for a book. Phil liked the idea and was wanting to do something along the same lines as self. And then we came up with the idea that we wouldn't tell anybody and we would run a school as if it was a football team and we would write a book about it. We had great fun with it, massive learning curve, learned a lot about ourselves, I learned a lot about teaching, and I learned a lot about what I could learn from teaching and bring into the footballing world. And I think Phil will say he learned a lot from the football world, what we were doing, that he could take into the teaching world. And here we are today, on the threshold of starting book number 2 after the really successful book 1, and still learning and still moving forward.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Micky. And Phil?
Yeah, so I, up until August, was a head teacher. So now I'm CEO of a company called Evaluated that does school improvement. It's a school improvement platform, and also a director in a company called Apogo that does a lot of work around supply and professional development. So in my education career, really, I've worked as a head in a school in Ormskirk, which is quite near Liverpool. And I've been a senior leader, so a deputy head, assistant head, a history teacher, head of history, head of house at one point. So really kind of range of skill of experiences, and worked in lots of different places. So I've worked in the school near Liverpool, and also worked abroad in Saudi Arabia for 4 years. So that was really interesting, and also around the northwest, in schools in the northwest. So yeah, like Micky said, really, when we got talking, we talked a lot about the similarities and differences between school leadership and leadership in the football world, and the parallels were fascinating, and it took us to some incredible places, just as I mean, it's Micky's world, but entering into Micky's world for a while was really interesting, and quite just as a regular football fan. There's a few times when I was a bit starstruck, but it was none more so than when I met Micky. But meeting like Manchester United managers and people like that was brilliant.
It's fantastic. Thank you both. And so what kind of prompted you, following this conversation in the gym, how did that develop into the book and potentially a second book? Because that's quite a leap from a conversation in the gym.
Well, I had gone through my learning journey, and I realised that we all keep looking for books and places to go to try and get information on how to make us better. And I discovered that there's never been a book written about football management, about me and Phil soon came to know. I'm in it, one of the most volatile jobs that you can have as a football manager, because you can change from week to week. But nobody had ever written a kind of process as to what you can maybe give to a manager in order to give him a good chance of success. But then we discovered also what we could do was we could go to industry and flip it back and forward. So we could say, we could take stuff from Toyota or from Phil's school, or we've been everywhere really, the Red Arrows and all these kind of guys, SAS. Bring back the learning from that and see how we could put it into this process. And what we found out was, as we were going along and we were in this, it was like a voyage of discovery. Phil keeps calling it like a voyage, and what we discovered as we went along was that the process became the same no matter what job you went into. It had a process. It had a start. It had a before the start. It had a start, and it had a middle, and then it had a through the first 100 days. And every one of the roles, and all that happened was some people realised before they went into these roles what the role was before they went into it, and give themselves the best chance of attacking it from day one. And as we went through it, and we were going to see more and more people, the amazing thing was we kind of knew what they were going to say, or where they were at, or how we could help them after about 5 minutes. And then we had some unbelievable conversations with some real high achieving football managers and guys, and head of education, and I even found myself on some presentations to head teachers up. I mean, me and Phil's been all over the place doing these presentations now, and we love it. We're so passionate about it. But the main thing is we wanted to gather all this learning and put it into a book, so that other people, that was the main thing, that other people could look at it and as a resource and maybe get some stuff out of it and help them along their journey a little bit.
And Phil, you said in your introduction that you quickly found some kind of similarities between football and management and headship, and some differences. Would you talk to us about what those were?
Yeah, well, I think as the people listening to this are thinking about aspiring to leadership and education, there's that feeling that you're jumping into the unknown. And when you jump into, I'll give the example of a headship. There is that feeling of, can I do this? What do I do on my first day? Because if you're teaching, you get told where to go, pretty much, what your curriculum is, what your expected outcomes are, and then off you go. Whereas when you're in leadership, the more leadership responsibility you get, the more your time is your own in some senses. You have to use the most valuable thing you have is time. So how do you use that time most effectively? So when I spoke to Micky, one of the things that I really realised about football management that I hadn't appreciated before is the amount of work that goes into getting a team ready for a season, for the next week, for a match, the fluctuations of that, and then when we found so many examples of when they cross over, and I felt really fortunate because I could then apply that in my school. So one example that Micky always laughs at is about celebrating success. So Micky said, well, what do you do when you win? So I thought, well, you get a good set of results, or something's improved. And we had a really positive Ofsted inspection. And so what I was going to do was basically give everybody a plate of biscuits and a cup of tea and say, well done. Because in education, that's it. You move on to the next thing really quickly. And but so Micky and I talk a lot kind of on the way on our commutes to work, and so you can't just leave it at that. You've had a major success. You've got to celebrate it. So that changed my view on celebrating things, and also the process of change. One of the questions that we get asked a lot at education events is, or Micky gets challenged with, is, well, you can change your players. You can change your players when you want. You can drop them. You can change them at the end of the season. You can't do that in education, but it's just not as easy as that, because you might drop them and they might not play, but they're still there, and there's still people that need to be managed, and probably managed even more than the people who are playing every week, because they're the people who will be the cultural architects for your group of people. So you can then apply that to your head of English, who you might say, right, well, how do you keep on side the people, your new member of staff who's full of ideas and enthusiasm? How do you keep on side the people who say, I've seen it and done it all before? How do you get the people in the middle? And I think leaders, one of the things that sort of a lot of qualifications don't prepare you for is that those people will be in every football team. Micky will have those players in his team who are ready to kind of end the career. He's got those players who are waiting for a big move. Those ones who are at the level that they think, right, I've made it to play at this professional level. Fantastic. If you're in a school, you're going to have those people. And the big thing in the book that gave me great calmness in the way that I approach things was that's always going to be the case. So you've just got to change your mindset to not waste energy on frustration of that being so, and find ways to maximize the people that you have in your team or your department, whatever it might be.
And Micky, was there something that came from working with Phil in education that you then took to football management?
Oh, well, I mean, one of the big things that people laugh at, and even my players now, and I do this with the staff, I have an exam every 3 days. So, and I got that idea from school.
Okay.
So I am able to test the learning of my players every 3 days of where we're up to, because I have a game every 3 days. So I look at that game as an exam, and I look at the exam and I say, right, where are we up to? What have I learned about my players? What do they need to be better at? What have we brought forward? I spoke to Phil about that. I said, I really like that. I said, why don't you, even at school, even though it's not an exam as such, sitting down in a lecture hall and right, heads down, you've got an hour, why don't you test the learning of the building all the time? So just test the learning of the building. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, go and set the fire alarm off. What do you think will happen? Go and have a test fire alarm. So go and test the learning of the building. I said, what do you think will happen, Phil? And Phil said, well, we'll be orderly and we've gone through it and we'll do this and we'll do that. And I said, right, great. I said, my players are like that as well. I got the training pitch. We have a 11 aside and we say, we're going to play like this, lads, blah, blah, blah. And we go to Saturday, the whistle goes and chaos. And it looks like we've never met. All right, really? I said, I think they'll be okay. So I said, phone me after work, Phil, let me know how your exam goes. Phoned me up after work and he's laughing, and I went, what are you laughing at? And he went, carnage, chaos, people running all over the place, kids shouting, playing, teachers not where they should have been. And I said, well, there you go. You've set the alarm, you've tested the learning of your building, go and fix it. Now that's something for you to do as a leader, is to make sure that in that situation again, speak about being calm, speak about making sure that you stick to your roles, make sure that the organisation's good. I said, that's just like me on a Saturday. And now what I'll do after the Saturday game, like you'll do after that, is go in and fix it. And then maybe further down the line, you'll test the learning again. But keep testing the learning of your building, of your environment, of anything at all. Listen to sticky words and things like that we learned off some brilliant managers. Because if you keep saying to the staff, because Phil, I'll tell you a story maybe in a minute about because when we did this school thing about philosophy, and Phil was a world-class school, and he kept drilling in a world-class school, world-class education, world-class behaviours, and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you keep putting that in, then and the pupils are listening, same as my players. When you listen in critical moments or moments in the building, they'll say the things back to you, meaning you've tested the learning, they've taken it on board, and now it's just natural. Well, what happened with Phil was a roof in the building started to leak, and they're all panicking and all running around. And Phil's even digging in because he wants to be seen as a leader that's helping and parting. Sleeves rolled up, and I'm one of yous, and I'm there. And girls, I think it was, walked by Phil, and he goes, "Well, that's not very world class, is it, sir?"
You can always rely on the students to just say the right thing at the right moment, can't you?
What I thought was brilliant, and I said to Phil, yes, but look beyond that. They know what world-class standards are, and they've said, that's not good enough. If you're going to be world-class, that's not good enough. Standards are set. You must meet them. And I thought, brilliant, it's going in. Great learning.
And it's that kind of thing where you're sort of setting out, you have a vision for something, then you have a process to get there. And there were lots of times when you might sit with your team and say, well, this isn't right and this isn't going as we thought, this is going well, but it's part of a process. And if you can, as a leader in a school, if you can accept that process and that you aren't going to just say, we want to be world class or we want to win every match, that it's just going to happen because you've said it. One manager that I spoke to, was a manager for a long time in the Scottish Premier League. He said he went from one club to another and he had what he called a God complex, because he went from one Scottish Premier League to an English Premier League team. And he believed that just by saying it, because he'd been successful in Scotland, that he was then going to be successful in the English Premier League. And it didn't work like that. And that was kind of his big learning curve. But you can look at lots of different models of change of that. And again, sometimes the leadership programs, the MPQ programs, which are really valuable, but don't really delve into that, except there's going to be a process. So there's great models of things like Cotter's 8 Steps of Change, which I'd really recommend people to look at, that talks about a way that you can establish a process to change something. There's something, the diffusion of innovators, that you can look at who are your early adopters, who are your late adopters, blah, 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 right the way to who are the people that they call the laggards that aren't going to change no matter what. And then in that, what we found, and going back to that first question, what the similarities is Micky and I came up with this phrase of captains. Or Micky asked me, who are your captains in your school? I have captains in my team. Who are your captains? And it first of all, I spoke about, well, these are the people who are really on it all the time. These are the people who are a great example to others, and that's not it might not be who you want it to be sometimes, because your captains are the people that influence everybody else. And sometimes it's whether you like it or not, their opinion is going to influence everybody else. So rather than looking for a whole school buy-in or a whole department buy-in, you actually can target a lot of your work into specific people that you know will carry the weight of your message when you're not in the room. Because if they buy into it, then everybody else will. However, if they are captains and they don't buy in, and they are actually continual obstacles, then you know who you've got to deal with. So there were so many learning points, and that was one of the things where I looked at my staff room and I thought, these are the captains. There's a couple of them that I think great, and there's probably one of them that I think, oh, I wish that they weren't the captain, but they are. So I've got to deal with them as well.
I think one of the things that's coming out from listening to you both is the importance of that culture and that vision, whether you use the phrase world-class school or whatever sort of underpins the organisation that you're leading. It's about culture and vision. For the people that are listening who are maybe aspiring into those positions where they might be about to take on a department for the first time or take on an assistant headship for the first time, what would you tell them about how you set about establishing and moulding the culture that you want in that team that you're leading, whether it's a department or a whole school team? What would you be saying to them?
I like to really simplify things. I think it's because of my footballing background, and they're all different learning types. That's something else I've learned from Phil to get right into that. The biggest thing that I would say is keep it dead simple. There's a before the beginning. So do your homework before you go into the job. Find out as much as you can about the role that you can, or what the job is that you're expected to do before the first day. So whoever you can go in and find out about that, think about that. Is it the person who's employing you? What happened that you're getting the job now? Why did they want you? What do they expect you to do? And then if you can get inside it by asking maybe the person that you're replacing, or people that's already in the building that you're going to be affected by, and do that. Do your homework on as much as you can before that first day that you arrive. Then that gives you a start point. And then when you go in, don't believe you have to go in and change everything unless it's a complete restart. If you're going in, so find out the reason why you went in. I mean, Phil did the STARS model. Phil will talk to you about the STARS model probably in a minute, which the STARS model just as a bit of a process of finding out what the type of job is that you believe that you're going to go into. But Phil will tell you about that probably in a minute. But then when you go in, so you found out all about that and you go in, just sit and watch. just sit and watch, and because there'll be things there that, because the place will still have to turn over. Just maybe sit and watch and do the things that are necessary. But don't go in and make any big changes, because what we've found with managers, they've gone in and said, I didn't have tomato sauce at the last job that I was at, and we won the league. But then I've been into the next job and I've changed the tomato sauce and it's been uproar. There was no need to do something like that because the team would still win with tomato sauce or not. Things like that. So go in and embrace what the culture is already there, and then bring your ideas in, and then bring the culture that's suitable that you think to make that organisation or group of people able to achieve the best way it can, and then grow it from there. And then, as Phil said, get to know your changing room. It might, you call it a changing room, Phil calls it a common room or whatever, staff room, you might call it, I don't know, whatever it is that this group of people come together. Where is it that they come together? Get to know them, take your time, and you will find out who's who. So build relationships with them, and then set the targets. This is what we want to try and achieve, and take your time and let it move forward. I think it sounds really complicated when we're answering questions from here and here and here and here. But no, like I said at the start, every single job that you go into, there's a before the start, a term, and then you have a look at it, see where we're up to, and keep building it and growing it. And even when you've got to where you believe is the first 100 days, you're still growing and making things better and learning about people and learning about that. And it keeps going, and then you just keep checking the building and have the odd exam, check the learning of the building. Is it okay? How can we make this better? Ask. And it just goes on and on and on and on. Not as complicated as what I believe a lot of people who try and make themselves look fantastic. Look at me, I'm brilliant. They're just good at the process. They understand the process, and they allow the building to grow with them in it, and they grow in and around it. And it's all about getting results with the qualities of the people that you have in the building, setting the right environment with the right standards, and away you go.
Brilliant. So Phil, that kind of segues nicely into the STAR model, I think.
Yeah, well, we distilled it down into starting a new role into 3 P's really. The first one is purpose, so being really clear on your why really as a leader. So if you're taking over a new department, why fundamentally is that subject or that year group or that period of time, whatever it might be, why is that really important to you, and why do you want to take up that role? If you can communicate that to a team, that's really powerful. So it might be social mobility, it might be excellence, but that purpose needs to be aligned to a couple of other things as well. So the next thing is your people. So looking at the people you have. So you've got your purpose. Then who are the people that are going to really help you as a team work towards that purpose? So I like those couple of things I've mentioned there that you might look at: who's high aligned, high performance, and then who's low alignment but high performance, who are often the most difficult people to work with. And then you can switch those round to look at low alignment, low performance, and so on. And then finally is this idea of position. So a lot of the managers we spoke to had been in multiple jobs. And the common thing that they spoke about, so Sam Allardyce was a really good version. He talked about he'd learn that you can't, there's that phrase that if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. But that's not necessarily true when you change roles. So when you change a role, it's a different position. So he talked about going from Bolton to Newcastle, and he had tried to do exactly what he did at Bolton. He was really successful at Bolton. He tried to do the same thing at Newcastle, which was a different place. Now, multiple reasons why something like that doesn't necessarily work. But the STARS model is really a way to help people to look at the position of the team or the department that you're taking over, or the school. So it stands for, so the S is a startup, something that's brand new. So you get to create the whole culture. You get to try and draw people in right at the beginning, recruit people on a certain set of values, a certain purpose. And that does exist in education. It exists in free schools, but it can also exist in a new department. If you had a new subject, let's say you start teaching psychology at GCSE, you might be a brand new head of psychology, which is a startup. Then you have a turnaround situation. So if you're taking over a situation that you need to change really quickly, otherwise there's a burning platform to it, and either the results of the students are going to suffer, or the school will be, I don't know, go into special measures or whatever it might be. So you've got turnaround. Then you've got accelerated growth, which is like it says on the tin, really. That's getting something that's performing quite well and sort of supercharging it. Realignment. So when we talked to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United, that it was very much a realignment job. He had the players, he had the club, he had lots of things that were in place, but he needed to realign them back to that purpose. And then finally, you've got one of the most difficult is sustaining success. So, it's that thing, if you take over from somebody who's done the job really well and has either retired or moved on to another role, or being promoted, and you've got to sustain that success. So that is, like Micky was saying, you don't go into a role like that and well, you can do, but it can be really counterproductive and say, we're going to change everything. And that was some of the managers that we mentioned in the book. That's what they tried to do. They went into a job that was sustaining success, and they probably would say that they changed too much too early. So yeah, understanding your purpose and sharing that with people is really important from the outset, so that people know you and they know what your set of values are. Then seeing who the people are that are going to help you and your team work towards that shared purpose. And then finally, tagging that or including the position with that. Now, that was probably, they were all closely aligned with education, but when we heard of what Sam Allardyce did to turn around football teams at the wrong end of the Premier League, and what a head teacher in the northwest of England did to turn around a school, the commonality was unbelievable. They did exactly the same thing. And it was like a blueprint. If you want to improve behavior on the corridors, this is how you do it. Go and do it. If you want to improve your defense from set pieces, this is how you do it. We're training like that for the next 3 weeks. Off you go. So that was the kind of starting point for these people to get off to a really great start with the 100 days.
And what sort of advice do you have for people? Because one of the challenges, I think, as a leader is balancing that. You know where you want to get to, but you've absolutely got to take people with you. And so sometimes there is an urgency that you can see that you can't necessarily deliver because you've got to take people with you. I wonder what your thoughts are around how you balance that pace of change in a new role.
Well, that's always. I mean, I don't think there's any real answer to that it's do this. I think that's where you understand that that's what you want to do. And then it's up to you then, I think, as the individual to know that you are doing that, you are moving it forward. But every group of people that you work with are going to be different. So you go into that new job, and a lot of it will be about patience and understanding that you are moving something forward. It just might not go at the speed that you want, but as long as you believe you're still moving it forward, and we all understand that we've got to do this, there is a need for change, or there is a need to improve this. Some people just might not work at your pace, or are as aggressive enough of getting the results as you. But I think as long as it's moving forward, we'd all like things to go quicker. I certainly would here. I'm in a different job this season to what I was last season. But it's about persistence, resilience, and believing that, yes, I'm doing the right things, and yes, this is the right things to move it forward for this group. Keep checking the learning, keep monitoring the improvements. How do you measure improvement? We all would have to find out about that. How can you see improvement? And there is always a way of doing that. And that's what I would say to everybody, is be patient with it. And as long as it's moving forward, keep moving it forward. It might go quicker than you want, it might not, but just be patient with it, and don't try and do everything in one day. I think a few of the managers that we've had have just gone in and first day and gone boom, and it's not worked. You've got time. And don't forget that every decision that you make in the first 100 days, you're going to get judged on. And when some people make a judgment on you, if you make a big decision and you get that wrong in that first 100 days, it'll be hard to turn around perception or what people's opinions are of you. It's always difficult to turn that back around again, and you'll then be working on changing opinion on yourself. Take your time. Take your time until I always say to Phil laughs at it, or when we go on these conferences, I try and not make a decision until it's here. And it's saying, make a decision, yes or no, and then I have to make the decision. A lot of times, I've found in my leadership role, if I leave it because I don't have to make it, a lot of the time it finds its own way, and it makes its own decision, and you go, all right, I'm glad I never jumped right in and did that then. Allowed it its time, and it unfurled, and it untangled, and then I went, oh yeah, just do that, we'll do that then. We'll do that. I would have did that anyway. But we just wait. Just take the time. Patience. I think patience is huge. But like I said, I understand you've still got to move things forward.
Absolutely. Phil, do you have the same thoughts for schools?
Yeah, and I think one of the things you hear a lot when you're working with people is that they try and explain why something is working or not working with logic. So they'll go in and say, right, we're going to change our assessment process. So we're going to change it like this because the students will learn more but they'll be able to act more on the feedback if we change the assessment like this. And they'll think, but it's totally logical. Why aren't people just all doing it immediately? And that's where patience, like Micky said, is really important. And while you are being patient, building up relationships, because the most powerful part of the brain that makes the decision is emotional. So there's brilliant books by like The Chimp Paradox by Dr. Steve Peters, who talks about this power of the chimp, and the chimp being your primitive emotional brain. If somebody is predisposed to disagreeing with you, it doesn't matter how logical the idea is, you're up against a really strong battle. So you've got to build those relationships. So little things like Micky would tell me about how he knew the names of the children of his players. He knew one of his players' dog's name, who he was taking him to the vets, knowing that one of your members of staff or of your team might be having a tough time at home with the children, or they look at you then in a different way, because they look at you as somebody who cares about them and who is doing things for a right reason. And they're more likely to come to you with honesty as well. If they don't agree with something, they'll come from a really good place of, I don't think this is going to work because of this, this, and this. And it's often, really good advice. And the more into leadership you get, sometimes the further away you get from what's actually happening day to day. And I know Micky does that with his players. So he spoke to me about working with his two centre forwards that were playing against three centre backs, and saying, you two have played against three centre backs before. How do you think we should play on Saturday? And they gave him feedback that he was going to give anyway in the coaching session, but for them, it's theirs, and they take that. We did something similar with a behaviour policy where we did a kind of workshop. And I hear this so much when I'm listening to leaders in schools who say, right, I've written this behaviour. I heard one so recently. I've written this behaviour policy. I've done it. I did it over the weekend. It's really good, and we're going to employ it on Monday. But I know some people won't buy into it. But if you sit down with a group of people and say, right, the behaviour in the classroom affects you much more than it affects me, because I'll deal with it at the end, but they know that as a head teacher, I can exclude them. I can give them a sanction. And if it gets to me, it's really serious. But it's not affecting me day to day with like low level things. So how do you want to deal with that? And it was great. We had a brilliant discussion around this topic. And one of the middle leaders, one of the captains, said, when you kind of know you've really hit on something, said, we can't expect the leadership of the school to be everywhere. And you thought, oh, great,
finally.
But if you come out and say that from that emotional point of view, don't expect us to be everywhere. You create that us and them culture, and there's always going to be a bit of that. There's always be a bit of it, I think. But what happened was that the team of staff that was newly qualified teachers, middle leaders, senior leaders, wrote it together, and then what was fascinating, again, going back to that emotional bit, one of the mistakes I made was telling everybody once that behaviour had improved. And of course, everybody in the staff room says, "No, it hasn't. What's he talking about?" Because they were thinking about all the things that they might think, well, that boy in that lesson. But everybody then started to say behaviour is improving. And I was thinking, it's exactly the same as it was before. It's just that we've all written this together. We all want it to work. And I think that's really important. So relationships and understanding that most decisions that people make in terms of buying in or supporting something with that like discretional effort comes from an emotional place rather than a logical place. And sometimes we can miss that in the development we have as leaders in sport and education.
And
I think
sorry, Micky, go on.
I want to add on to that because I did it today, and I've got a stage in my leadership now where I'm not really bothered what people think of me. So I think I've moved on now with it, me personally, and it's taken me time to get to there. So this morning with the group, we had a meeting this morning. I wasn't happy on the Saturday. So even now, into this stage, I'm still correcting things and working on old stuff and going over old things that I've told them many times. But I just have to keep going over it, and that's what you have to do with any group. And I'm going over old things again, and it happened again on Saturday. And I had to go to them after the game on Saturday and told them about themselves and all the rest of it. And they know I care, so I can pretty much say what I want to them because they know that I'm doing it because I'm upset for them because I want them to be good. And I came in this morning, and I'd been thinking over the weekend, and I'd heard somebody talking about ego. And I was thinking about ego, and I was not ego the bird, ego. So I'm thinking this morning, and I think, ditch the ego. It's not about me. So I went in this morning and we had a meeting, and I said, right, yous are doing that. Tell me what I need to do more. Tell me. We're not leaving here until you tell me what I need to do more to make you better or to make this situation better. Because what my job is here is to get the best out of you. And I said, go on, tell me. I ditched my ego. Because years ago, I would have thought, I don't really want them to talk about me because they'll hurt my feelings and all the rest of it. But now in my leadership journey, I'm not so fussed about that because I know where I am, position. Phil spoke about position. I know my position in this building is to make a group of players perform consistently and well and have good careers. And then I get the pat in the back because they're good. So I ditched the ego and I've said, go on then. What should I do more? And they came out with about 4 pillars. I'd never have thought about it. I thought that we were doing it anyway, but they said to me that they wanted me to do this in a different way. They liked this and they wanted to do more of that. And they understood what I was saying to them. And could I do that more? And could we as a staff do that more for them? And we want more of that. And I went, the hairs in my arm stood up and end. And I showed them. I said, I think that that's where we want to be, that we're all together as a group. I'm not the leader and the guy to be afraid of. I'm the guy that's hopefully working with yous, the teachers, the pupils or whoever, or the parents or whoever. I'm working with a group of footballers to come together for a common goal, success, first success. So let's work on it together. The only thing that I'll do is remember what you've told me. I'll keep the standards high. And I'll make sure that I don't forget when yous are going to perform, that yous ask me to do that. Now, I must go and deliver on that now, or the trust will go. I must go and deliver. So one of the biggest things is when you feel comfortable with it, don't right away. Ditch your ego and remember your position, like Phil said, in this organisation. And when you get to there, it's such a powerful thing because we're all working together for the same goal. There's no hierarchy or anything. It's just a group of people trying to win. And whatever winning is for you, go for it.
I absolutely agree about the ditching the ego mantra. I think you're absolutely right there. One of the things you talk about in the book is about developing the personal resilience to be a leader. And you said, Micky, now that you actually are less bothered what people think about you, and therefore you can act and behave it as a leader in a different way. For those colleagues that are listening that are perhaps new into leadership, how would you advise them to develop their own resilience? We all know there isn't one quick fix. We know that, but what are the kind of things that they can do and reflect on, which actually help them to gain that confidence and that resilience to maybe be able to drop the ego eventually, or to just have the moral courage and the determination and the staying power to do what are, in both situations, a really challenging job? And whether you want to start with that, Micky?
Yeah, what a brilliant question. Now, this is something that you can learn from us, from football. We learn a lot from you, and we don't give back enough, I don't think, in football, probably because we don't get asked a lot. Well, we have Twitter, we have Facebook. I have 8,000 football managers shouting at me from the stands every week, telling me
I'm not one of them.
And Phil's one of them, telling me
politely
what I should do and how I should do it and how they could do it better and all the rest of it. Now, that's fine. You have to respect that there is people out there with opinion. Now, the big thing for me is absolutely, like people say, controllables and uncontrollables. Only deal with the controllables, only deal with what you can control and only work on that. It's the same for that. Only deal with the stuff or listen to the stuff that is necessary, and this is one of Phil's, to make the boat go faster and slicker. So filter that stuff that's coming back to you, or even get somebody to do that for you. So in Phil's building, Phil has people around about the building who he can go to and say, what's going on at the minute? What's going on in the building? Phil's library, as in, for me, it's my physiotherapy room. They'll come back to me and say, Gaffer, you might have to think about this, or you might have to think about that. And I have people looking at Twitter and they'll say, only bring me back the necessities. Don't tell me about George, the butcher, who thinks I should be playing with 3 players up front. That's not necessary. But look at it as an opportunity to learn about the building, learn about the environment. Don't be scared of feedback. Just filter it. Take the necessaries from where it comes from. If somebody's coming back and saying, I don't believe that we should have whatever coffee at that time or whatever, you say, well, why is that? Tell me why. That's just an example. But anything that comes back, ask why. Why is that? And build it and take it, the feedback, as an opportunity to improve. Because it is. Because somebody's telling you about your building, your company, your organisation. Somebody's telling you something that they think it can be better with. So why would you be worried about that? So think about that. Think about feedback, not as criticism, but as feedback, and look at it as an opportunity to improve things, rather be frightened of it. And then the stuff that's nonsense, leave it in the nonsense tray, because it is, and there's a lot of it. And I get loads of it. But the other stuff I look at and I go, I don't have all the answers. But somebody might look at it from a different angle and it might go, do you know what? I quite like that. Thanks for that. I'm going to bring that in. So yeah, the answer to it is that don't be afraid of feedback. Don't be afraid of people saying that you could do this and that. Listen to it, feel it out, and then go with what you believe. Because at the end of the day, you're the leader for a reason. Somebody believed, or you have worked your way into a position that people think that you can lead this organisation. So believe that. You're there for it. Go for it. Be confident in it. Just get rid of all the, I'll go for it. And I always say one thing, Phil, die trying. At least have a go. Believe in it. Go for it. And if it works out, well done. If it doesn't, go back over it again and fix it, because you're the leader. They're all looking at you. So, and where am I going to try and achieve the right outcome?
Fabulous. Phil, what are your thoughts on resilience in school leadership?
Yeah, I think just what I suppose right at the end of what Micky said there is work with people. Don't feel like you need to know all the answers, and you can accept that. I think one of the hardest things in life in general is being yourself, because a lot of people go into a certain role and will try to act as in, I'll go and try and act in the way that I think people in this role should act. But if you can just be yourself and genuinely think of anything that you're doing, whether it's just stepping up into an assistant head role, that right, you might have a job over curriculum and assessment. Well, it's not just you. You're going to work with a whole school to do that. You're just going to be the the person who'll be heading it up, talking about it when you need to, and bringing together a vision and delivering that with people. But when you can go to people and say, right, this is working really well, I think, what do you think? Or I'm not sure that this is working too well. How do you think we can improve this? The resilience comes from the strength of others as well. And if you're clear on your purpose for doing it in the first place, it gives you a much better chance of sticking at it. Because if you think about things that we are completely resilient are, things like our families, and we're really resilient in that regard, and things that you would never dream of giving up on, then you can apply that to anything really. And the only reason that people might feel a crisis of confidence is when they feel that either they alone don't have the ability and all the answers to do that. Well, nobody does. Some people are better at bluffing it than others. But if you're very open about it, then nobody does. Yeah. But if you're getting people around you that you can, and I found it tremendously helpful working with Micky and really getting to know him, because I could ask him something about education. He comes at it from a completely different slant. So whatever role that you're looking to take up, don't just speak to teachers as well, because you'll also get some comedy of speaking to people who'll just realize how ridiculous some things in education are, and vice versa with football as well. So I think, it's that. Don't look at it like you're on your own. Try and be yourself and accept who you are, and then build on the strength of others. To sometimes you need that to fuel your own resilience, don't you? You need to feed off the strength of others. I think Drew Povey, who we do a lot of work with, speaks about that a lot, feeding off the strength of others.
Before I forget, because Phil will say things and I forgot to speak about it, because we do this all the time. Surround yourself with trustworthy people, because Phil's just said there, he's got me, I've got Phil, and I have other people outside and inside the organisation or what I'm doing that I can rely on. I've got my own team. I've got my own team of people around me that I can trust. So build your little force field around yourself with 8 people that you can go to. And then in any moment that you need time, go into that little group of yours. So Phil will come to me, and I'll go to Phil, or I'll go to a manager, an experienced manager, or I'll go to my wife, or I'll go to one of my staff, and I'll say, I know how I'd answer this question, but I'm going to ask you it. And then you give me the answer to it. And this is how exactly I speak to them. And I go, you give me the answer to it, and I'll see where it takes us. And we have a laugh and I play around with it. And I'll say, blah, 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 blah. And he'll go, well, I'll do that. And I go, right, okay, I thought maybe a wee bit of this. But I surround myself with these people. And when Phil said there, and I have a wee process, is it called the 5 wise men? And I might even say 6 now, because I have a what if in it. I go, who, what, where, why, and when. And then I always go, but what if? So I always go, how are we going to do it? Where are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Why are we doing it? What? And then I'll go, but what if this happens? So in all conversations that I'm trying to get a way of doing something, and somebody comes to me with an idea, I'll go, well, how are we going to do that? And why are we going to do that? And who's going to do that? But what if? So it just helps me, that wee process of finding a better way of getting something right. But getting back to that, it reminded me of that. Who, what, why, where, and what if. And it also reminded me, Phil said, surround yourself in any leadership role with your own little force field of brilliant people. Get your own little group that you can rely on, and you'll be bulletproof. Bulletproof if you get the right people around you. And you'll love it. You'll love it.
And as we draw this to a close, I could talk to you both all afternoon. It's genuinely fascinating. You mentioned, Phil, a moment ago about the number of brilliant people that you've spoken to throughout the course of this sort of the work that you've been doing. And you talk in your book about the various sort of names of people that you've spoken to. From all of those, I wonder if both of you, to finish, would give us the kind of one sort of nugget of advice that if people take one thing away from today, that you've taken from one of those brilliant people, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it was Micky spoke with Pep Guardiola, and he said something that I thought was was great. He said, "You can't copy and paste me. You can't be me. So don't try and be me. Be you. I do it like this, but you'll do it in a different way." And I think that's the thing, really, and really what I went to before. Have confidence in yourself, and do when you've done all your reading, when you've done all your preparation, when you've spoke to the right people and followed those sort of things that we've talked about, go for it. And Micky said this, we had spoke at an education conference and we got a great question. And one of the questions that I think the answer he didn't expect back was, sometimes you've just got to get on with it. Well, it was great. Sometimes you just got to get on with it, be yourself and get on with it. And at least if it goes well, brilliant, you can celebrate with everybody. And if it doesn't go well, at least you know you did it the way that you wanted to do it.
Fab, thank you. And Micky?
Yeah, all of what Phil was saying there, because what Pep Guardiola also said, he can't be you either. He's not good enough to be you. So I think that backs up, if you think about the answer, you're brilliant in yourself, because believe that. You're great at what you do. You've got a role, believe. But enjoy it. Understand the process. There is a before the start, a start, there's a middle bit, and there's a towards another bit that maybe some people might call end, but it isn't the end. It's just the restart of it, something new, and going back over it all again. Don't be frightened of it. Surround yourself with good people. Believe in yourself and go and enjoy it, and keep learning. Don't ever think that there's a place that anybody gets to and they've cracked it. And always remember that everybody is learning. There's nobody out there who's cracked it. In my world, Alex Ferguson, he never cracked it. Pep Guardiola, he hasn't cracked it. He's not got the answers to football. We're all evolving and getting better all the time, and we're all panicking at different times, and everybody is panicking or having a rejig. Just go and attack it and believe in yourself. Learn, surround yourself with good people.
Thank you so much. Phil, Micky, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you this afternoon. I know that all the colleagues who will be listening to this as a recording are just going to gain so much from your wisdom and from your expertise and just your passion for leadership and for clearly wanting to develop other people. So thank you both so much for your time this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.